interesting sometimes though, because you see the struggle, and you also see that most of the struggle is because people are holding on to something that's not accurate anymore and not doing the change process almost at all. So they're creating double work for themselves. They're overloading themselves with things that they shouldn't be, like having an internal meeting and then sort of sharing the outcomes and summaries and overviews of the internal meeting with the community. And if the topic that they discussed was not strictly proprietary, there were no trade company secrets in it, it could have and should have been an open conversation to start with, which eliminates the need to summarize and then also synchronize back the feedback into your still existing strict internal process. It's just a lot of extra work that burns people out. And sometimes it's just interesting to witness this, because at one point you just run out of ways to try to incentivize people and just, you know, turn on the light that what you're doing is the worst thing that you can do, not to the community, but to yourself. I've seen that happening a little bit, and it's just a head scratcher still, because whatever you say, people demand guarantees. Like, you guarantee if I do it this way, then this is what's going to happen, then the community will be this and that. Like, I can't guarantee. Like, there's no explicit guarantee. I can still guarantee them that if they keep doing it this way, nothing good is going to come out of that. But that's never enough. So that's a very interesting social challenge, and I was interested if it's a similar challenge in InnerSource too, even with a like a still somewhat closed environment that I assume still feels safer at least.
It absolutely is, but it's you know, I think it really is back to, I mean, I'll reference the scarf model again, but I find it so powerful because, like, even as you're discussing that, you know, people will tell you this is why they're not doing it. You know, rationally, I'm not doing it because of this, because I have all these reasons. But oftentimes there is a psychological fear that's going behind that. That if you dig a little deeper, you can kind of go, maybe they're feeling this. But the nice thing about the scarf model is that in the same way as it can trigger the negative reaction to change, if you kind of pump up those factors, if you incentivize people by helping them gain status through contributions or certainty or autonomy, or if you show them that it increases their autonomy, if it shows them the relatedness, like how they build connections in the external community, how it builds their own personal reputation, if you talk about how they can bring fairness into, you know, how governance is done well in this particular project, so that there is fairness about, you know, you're not going to be left holding the baby if something goes wrong, and no one's going to be ringing you at 2 a.m. or whatever it is that your fear is that you're not articulating. Maybe you're not articulating. If you can pump up those positive aspects as well, those scarf concepts, it can help deal with that personal motivation. And I think there's loads of things in both the inner source and the open source community that do that. But sometimes I think we're too quick to address the rational argument that people make, thinking that's the actual problem. And oftentimes it's not, because as you say, it's pretty obviously not. Like, they just don't understand that. Like, it's pretty, like, if anyone actually examines the evidence, yes, doing the thing that's less, you know, less effort in the short term but more pain in the long term is the wrong thing to do. But we know as people, we do that all the time. Like, I'm not going to the gym, not because I don't know it's the right thing to do, you know, but it's really getting behind that. I think that we all have to think about, and stop trying to pretend this is all rational. We are not rational beings. I'm sorry. So we we like to think we are, but we're not. So let's deal with that and get to what actually motivates us, because there's plenty of that in open source and inner source. And the more we emphasize those aspects, the more people will get on board and deal with their fears and move towards that positive place of change. But it's not through rational arguments, I think. And this is again the problem with this value conversation. I mean, half the time, you know, you think once you get a bigger bottom value number that everyone's going to go, yay, well, now that makes sense, but it wouldn't solve the problem. just because we think that's the problem because we don't have that number. But honestly, even if we had that number, people would be like, oh yeah, but like, this other way that I used to do it, it's also good because, and they'll think of some other model that we haven't worked out yet. So people don't want to change, they don't want to change. We have to help them want to change.